Senator Bernie Sanders recently had a little bit of a health scare. He ended up having a heart attack. Now the initial reporting was it was not a heart attack. It was he just had stents put into his heart to help a blocked artery, and that's how most of the early reporting was. And then eventually, after he got out of the hospital, or maybe around the time that he got out of the hospital, he the media started reporting that he had a heart attack, and then. But it ended up really being like a kind of a mild heart attack. It was nothing serious, because he already got out of the hospital like a couple days later, so it wasn't really that big of a deal. And the media is mostly just blowing it up into something that it's honestly really not, and they're trying to get headlines for the most part as usual, which isn't surprising coming from the media. But nevertheless, I wanted to cover an article here that was that kind of went into the details of exactly what happened. Again, he did end up having a heart attack, but it was a very minor heart attack or type of heart attack. I'm not exactly sure what the name of the actual attack was or is, but it's starts with an M. I'm not exactly sure on the name. I'm not a very good at like technical terms like that. So if you guys want to look it up and comment on it in the comment section or something, you can do that, or maybe I'll put it in the description box or something. But let's get into one of the articles that was covering exactly what happened here, and then we'll just kind of discuss it on the as we're reading here. So the article that I'm reading is from NBCnews.com, and the title is "Bernie Sanders Cancels Campaign Events After Medical Procedure for Blocked Artery." 2020 candidate Senator Bernie Sanders was hospitalized Tuesday in Las Vegas and underwent a significant medical procedure after a blockage was found in one of his arteries. His campaign said Wednesday. Sanders, who is 78 years old, has canceled all of his campaign events until further notice. And then quoting Jeff Weaver, who's a senior advisor to Bernie, says during a campaign event yesterday evening, Senator Sanders experienced some chest discomfort. Following medical evaluation and testing, he was found to have a blockage in one artery, and 2 stents were successfully inserted. And then it says, Weaver continues and says Sanders is conversing and in good spirits. He will be resting up over the next few days. We are canceling his events and appearances until further notice, and we will continue to provide appropriate updates. So I believe the heart attack, or the issue, the chest pains and stuff happened around, I think it was October 1st, I believe, or maybe September 30th, October 1st, sometime around there. And then he ended up going to the hospital around that time. It was either October 1st or maybe October 2nd. And then he was released, I believe, yesterday. And so the issue that I want to talk about here is not Bernie Sanders' heart, because I don't believe that he has heart issues. And before I get into what I the kind of the meat of what I wanted to get into, I wanted to read you guys a part of a piece here that was released in when was it released? It was released in 2016, and this was a New York Times article talking about the kind of other health issues that Bernie has had, which haven't been serious, but let me read it here. It says, so this is from a New York Times article in 2016. It says, among the ailments for which Mr. Sanders has been treated over the years are gout, mild elevation of cholesterol, an underactive thyroid gland for which he takes hormone replacement therapy, and inflammation of out patches in the colon known as diverticulitis. Mr. Sanders has also been treated for superficial skin cancers, lower back strain, and laryngitis from acid reflux. He has had surgery to remove the cyst in his vocal cord and laparoscopic repair of a hernia on both sides of his lower abdomen. and then referring to and this is what the Dr. Moynihan, I guess Monahan, one of the doctors that I guess examined him, obviously, that's what he wrote. And he says he did not list the surgery dates, but Mr. Sanders was widely reported to have had an outpatient hernia surgery. So that's mentioned a little bit earlier there. So nothing serious. Bernie hasn't had any kind of serious health issues up until he had this issue with his heart. And so Bernie gave he kind of responded on Twitter to people that were telling him feel better and everything. He says, thanks for all the well wishes. I'm feeling good. I'm fortunate to have good health care and great doctors and nurses helping me to recover. None of us know when a medical emergency might affect us, and no one should fear going bankrupt if it occurs. Medicare-for-all with an exclamation point. And then it says, and then so that was on the 2nd, October 2nd. The next day, he sent out another tweet, and he said, I'm looking forward to sharing our vision for transforming this country at the next debate. I am lucky to have great health care, but millions of Americans are not. Some 87 million Americans are uninsured or underinsured. This is unacceptable to me. We need Medicare for all. So clearly Bernie is taking the smart strategy of making this issue about how other people are going through obviously the predicament of not having Medicare for all or just not having a decent health care in general. And that's a very good angle to take it from the campaign and from Bernie himself. And so what I was going to say before was that my issue is not the fact that I'm worried about Bernie Sanders having a heart attack or having health issues, because I don't think he has any serious health issues, and we just covered that. He hasn't had anything significant up until he had this heart attack, mild heart attack, heart condition, or not heart condition, but heart, like chest pains. So, and when you put stents into the heart, to block the artery, you end up actually feeling much better. Now, nobody is denying Bernie Sanders is old. Nobody is denying that he may have some issues with his health. But this is the first serious issue he's had, and the stents end up making you feel much better after you put them in. And my feeling is that he's going to be okay after this. Now, like I said, I don't think Bernie Sanders' health is an issue. The problem is he has already been attacked by the media for being old. And it's always been bullshit. But now that they have confirmed health issues, add some meat to their claims on top of people saying that when you're president, your health deteriorates faster due to all the work and effort you put into the job. I feel like that's not politically, it's not going to help him. So when you look at politically, this whole thing is not helping Bernie. Now, again, a lot of the coverage of Bernie has always been really bad. This could end up not having much of an effect, but it also can have an effect. And it's just, my fear is that it's going to be something that they're going to pounce on, and they're going to use it to just attack him more. And considering the fact that there are some people out there who are worried about the age and the health of a candidate, they're going to go out there and be like, oh, well, he's so old. And, the media always talks about him being old. And then he's so, I don't know, now he has this health issue, so now we have to be even more worried about it. So people freak out about this stuff constantly. Ultimately, they don't really care about the policies. They just want somebody that's fit for office, and that's not even mentally fit. That's physically fit too. And honestly, if there was another Bernie Sanders out there was another young Bernie Sanders running, and that's not Elizabeth Warren, but if there was, a younger version of him, obviously I would support that person. But unfortunately, there isn't a younger version of Bernie Sanders out there, and so, a lot of voters out there thinking that, oh, he can go just endorse Elizabeth Warren, whatever. He can go endorse Pete Buttigieg, whatever. That's going to be the same thing. Go endorse Joe Biden. Yeah, give me a fucking break. Nobody's going to want to do that. Nobody wants an alternative to Bernie Sanders, unless he's on his fucking deathbed. And even then, people are gonna support him. A lot of people will go out there and support a fucking dead corpse of Bernie Sanders instead of going and voting for Pete Buttigieg or whatever, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren. So this isn't an issue among Bernie Sanders supporters, because we're not worried about Bernie Sanders dying, because we're not under the impression that that's going to happen. If that was really going to happen, he would have said something, his campaign would have said something, he would have completely suspended his campaign and dropped out. That's not happening yet. So unless something even worse happens, which I don't expect it to, then he's not going anywhere. And people that are just telling him to drop out are, they're delusional, and they just want to find a way to give an easier road to Elizabeth Warren, who already has her issues as it is. And regardless of how high she is in the polls, that doesn't mean that she's automatically going to go and beat Donald Trump, and let alone even win this primary against Joe Biden, who's even worse than Elizabeth Warren. So, now, when it comes to the situation with Bernie again, it's possible that this matter could get him sympathy among voters due to the fact that he will be coming back and campaigning, which I think he already is. And but people will still bring up how he had these issues to begin with, and the age question will constantly come up, and especially in future debates. Now, that's the issue. The main issue is the fact that not just that the media is going to talk about it, but the fact that you're going to have a debate where people are going to harp away, the whatever journalists or the people ask the questions, the hosts or whatever, they're going to be harping away on it, just hitting him and hitting him and hitting him just again and again. Do you have health issues? Do you have this? Do you have that? And he's going to have to keep answering to that, and then he's going to get upset. Understandably, Bernie's going to be like, "Can we talk about the issues?" And people are going to say, "Why are you yelling so much?" So it's like no matter what he says, people are going to attack Bernie. No matter what he does, they're going to whine about him. Either being too old, or him yelling too much, or him being angry. So it's like no matter what, or his ideas are pie in the sky and ponies and fairy dust. So it's no matter what, Bernie Sanders is getting attacked from every side, no matter where it is. So just like he kind of demonstrated in his tweets, the goal of the Sanders campaign definitely needs to be to spin this in the best possible way, such as talking about how Bernie Sanders was able to get the best health care possible because he's obviously a politician. He's working for the government, so he essentially gets government health care, which is Medicare-for-all. And while regular people are still suffering because they don't have Medicare-for-all or single payer or any kind of decent health care. And I think that's definitely a good angle for him to just kind of keep going, kind of slamming the obviously the terrible healthcare system, and then using it to his advantage to talk about real issues. And I mean, obviously among the people that are just don't give a shit, the real issues are, he's really old, or he's really whatever, he's not fit or fit to be in office or whatever. Because like that 2016 report said, he's never had any major issues. This was his first major issue, and that's after going and campaigning like crazy all over the country, working hard to get people to obviously agree with his ideology and his point of view. So Bernie is killing himself to go out there and get people to get on board with his movement, and they have. He has 1 million unique donors, so people that support him, and he's averaging, I heard somewhere, $19 per donation. I don't know if that's true, but if that's true, that's amazing. But before it was $27 an hour. So Bernie Sanders has no issues getting the support of people that support him and the people that love him. And the fact that he has 1 million unique donors is huge already. Nobody has anything close to that. I think Elizabeth Warren has 750,000, but even that's, I heard that's not even true. I heard it's even less than that. So, but the reality is that Bernie has never shown serious health issues until now, and even before that, candidates have run before on their have run regardless of how their health is, some even having health issues even worse than Bernie. For example, Joe Biden has had an aneurysm. I think he's had actual multiple aneurysms. Hillary Clinton, she suffered concussions and then had so further concussion issues while she was Secretary of State, and then going into running for president too. And then not to mention President Bill Clinton, and then President George H.W. Bush both had stents put into their hearts to prevent any artery blockages in the future. So now, to be fair, you can say, well, Bernie Sanders was much older than Bill Clinton. I don't know how old George H.W. Bush was back then, but maybe he was. Let's just go with the possibility that he was older than both of them. Even if that were really the case, that doesn't automatically mean that it's going to be worse for Bernie Sanders just because he's older. The issue is that the issue with like the whole kind of the people's perception, like, so I'm talking about people like voters, their perception just happens to be like, oh, well, the person is old, so that must mean that, he's going to drop dead because he's an 80, whatever, almost 80-year-old man. And then he had a heart issue. And then he, that means that he's just done and he's a fucking vegetable now. Like, honestly, it's just total bullshit. And at the end of the day, people want to pretend as if, like, they want to pretend as if, like there was one person saying that, oh, the multiple people, but there was one person that was saying that on Twitter who was like, oh, well, if you still, believe that Bernie Sanders should stay in this race, you don't really care about him. He needs to rest up and get a ton of rest, and he needs to, go take a break and stuff and not campaign and give his body some rest. Like, basically just like, don't campaign. So like they were trying to basically find a way to make sure that he's not campaigning, but on top of it saying that the people that want him to still keep campaigning don't care about him, and they just don't give a shit, and they're just worried about themselves. When in reality, we're going out there and we're standing up for this guy to go and pursue this obviously this dream of his to become president so that he can enact his policies. Obviously, this is something that he wants to do, and he's passionate about it, just like any other person that would run for president. So if anything, we're supporting something that he's doing. Now, you can obviously say that, hey, you got to save somebody from themselves, and, you can go out there and, tell somebody to go do something when they shouldn't be doing it, and that's fucked up. But ultimately, I'm pretty sure that a couple people on Twitter telling Bernie Sanders to drop out is not going to make that much of a difference. The fact that, again, he has 1 million unique donors and his policies are popular, that's the reason why he should stay in the race. Again, if he's on his deathbed, obviously we don't want him to get to his deathbed. We don't want him to be, dying to campaign. Now, that's his decision. He wants to do that, he can do that. We support him in anything that he wants to do, but we're not going to tell him to drop out, because there are no good options out there for progressives. And anybody who wants to say that Elizabeth Warren is a good option, you're delusional. That's not true at all. Elizabeth Warren is essentially another version of Barack Obama. If you look at it, like, let's say if she were to become president and, get into the White House and enact all her policies, it would be pretty much along the lines of Barack Obama. That's my opinion. And but when it comes to Bernie, he can actually push for something. He can push for policies that are progressive and policies that people love and have been demanding, and the rest of them just don't have anything close to that. So the whole point of, oh yeah, just let Bernie drop out and just endorse somebody else, go endorse Biden or go endorse Elizabeth Warren or Buttigieg, that's not going to happen. You're going to have to hold the gun to people's head and probably kill them if you want to make them do that. So at the end of the day, Bernie Sanders is going to be staying in this race. He is not going anywhere, and the media coverage already has been fucking horrible. I saw an article today, and I'm going to post it in the description box below. There was this article from this guy. Apparently, he's like a poet or something, and he's like a Vermont native. I have never even heard of him. I don't know who the hell he is, but for some reason, CNN decided to give him this opinion, this op-ed piece, to write his feelings about Bernie Sanders. And basically, what this guy was saying was, "Oh, I'm a Vermont resident, and I love Bernie Sanders. I love what he's done. Blah blah blah." But I think that he needs to hand over the reins to Elizabeth Warren and tell her that she's going to, let everybody know that she's going to take over for the progressive, the progressive movement and push the progressive policies, and she's the person for America. You get the fuck out of here, man. That is not even close to what Bernie Sanders should be doing. Not right now, at least. I mean, if you want to look at it from the Democratic loyalist point of view, I mean, obviously that's what they want him to do. But like, even any kind of like objective, rational thinking person out there shouldn't think that Bernie Sanders should already drop out and give the reins over to Elizabeth Warren. We haven't even had a freaking primary yet. I don't understand what the point of that is. At least have a primary and see how people feel. And, people can point to all these different polls out there. Oh, look at this poll, showing Elizabeth Warren here and we're showing her there. Those, a lot of the times, they're pointing to national polls. Now, if you go state by state polls, Bernie Sanders is perfectly in the race. I covered this last week. On my last podcast, I mentioned how, Chris Cillizza, idiot from CNN, is talking about how, oh my God, Bernie Sanders is so low in the polls, blah, blah, blah. And then, he just picks out all these cherry picks all these polls. And I was like, okay, I can cherry pick polls too. And I showed a bunch of polls that he's doing well in. I showed at least 5 polls that he's either in pretty much second place or higher. Even some of them in first, and that was like New Hampshire, South Carolina. I think the one that was Nevada. So yeah, anybody can go out there and say, "Oh, look how terrible Bernie Sanders is doing in the polls." And I've said this multiple times on the show. I don't put too much on, on polls, especially when it comes to national polls, because I don't feel like national polls truly get all the, I feel like they skew mostly in getting specific type of demographics that don't benefit the progressive candidates. And honestly, if anything, they kind of overshare on the kind of like the boomers, the boomer generation older. So they don't poll a lot of young people. Now, if you poll young people, all of them are going to want to support Bernie Sanders. And young people are the ones that are the future of this country. Myself, and then a bunch of other people that are millennials out there too. Millennials are the ones that are deciding what's going to be what's best for this country and what needs to happen for the future of this country. And Bernie Sanders has huge support among millennials. And if people want to keep denying him denying him his due regarding the support that he has, then you're basically fighting against reality, because at the end of the day, Bernie Sanders has the support among the people that are going to be alive for the next 50 to 100, not 100 years, but 50 to 75 years, essentially, if you want to, kind of ballpark it. But the media talking about, how Bernie Sanders is whatever, his health issues are this, and he's in trouble, and he's down in the polls, they're going to find every single possible reason to get him to drop out. And at the end of the day, Bernie Sanders is not going to drop out because his supporters, his most ardent supporters, myself included, do not want him to drop out, because there is no other good option. And if people want to keep pushing that point, you're just going to keep motivating Bernie supporters to back him. And that's, you want to keep doing that, then okay. You obviously don't realize the momentum that you are building for Bernie Sanders to win states that people are already counting him out in. And for somebody like myself who's covering this kind of shit, constantly, wall to wall, always, looking up different, articles and looking at polls and, constantly getting news about what's happening, I know Bernie Sanders is a much better candidate than the media portrays him to be. And if they want to keep pushing this this kind of faux reality, this faux reality kind of point of view from the media, it's not, they're not gonna convince anybody. They're just gonna keep convincing their elitist friends and corporatist friends in DC and all the other kind of neoliberal type donors out there who are in love with the likes of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren. And those people are not the people that are going to be deciding what's going to be happening in this country. So you can keep doing what you're doing, but it's not going to work.